Outside? Yeah. You just interrupted my nasty blues jam. You don't care, do you? No. All right, I'm gonna talk to the people. All right, hey guys, Corona Lessons, volume. God, what is it? 13, I think. 13. Yeah, man. Everyone's been asking to plug this old deluxe in, so that's what I just did. Plug the guitar right into it. And not just any guitar, this guitar. You know, I think I have this piece of paper over here. Oh, I had a pen. Anyway, I can't find it. But years ago, I asked Paul Reed Smith. I said, hey man, would you build me a guitar? And he said, yeah, whatever you want. And I said, I sent him this really crude drawing, this piece of paper. It's hilarious, actually. It's like a crude shape of a guitar, and I told him everything I wanted. Super lightweight Carina body, no inlays, one pickup, an old DiMarzio Super Distortion, simple wang bar, volume and tone. It's got to say Cleveland on the headstock here, right? And I thought he forgot about it. And one day the thing just showed up in the mail. I couldn't believe it. I thought he'd completely forgotten about it. But he's a good guy. So, all right. I was just fucking around there. I don't even know what I'm doing. A lot of mistakes and everything, but who cares? And that was my 4-year-old that just came out and said hello. I was going to talk about sessions. You know, a lot of people have asked me to talk about sessions and session playing, but I'm a little reluctant to get too into that because I don't know what percentage of my 238 subscribers out there are like full-time session guys. Probably not a lot, right? So I don't want to get too inside talking about all this deep, dark details of being a session guy, because I feel like it might be lost on some people, and not just because they don't do it, not because they're not smart enough to grasp what I'm talking about. But all right, and the thing that I was going off on yesterday about how you got to know where you are on the guitar to be free, right? Freedom in music and playing is the ultimate goal for me. I said that yesterday. I'm going to say it again. Here's what I mean by that, all right? Like when I was younger, and I was a session guy when I first got started, I suffered a terrible case of what I call red light fever. We'd be working up the song, and I'd be, we're not really rolling the tape yet, but I'd be trying a bunch of crazy stuff, and I'd come up with some cool parts, right? Because that's the whole thing about being a session guy. You're asked to write parts right on the spot. They'll come in with a real simple jam, and you got to come up with some creative little things, right? So I'd be doing that. I'd be coming up with these neat little things, and then everyone's like, "Great, man, sounds great, guys. All right, let's get one." And they'd hit red, and it would all go away, and I would stiffen up. And I would play real safe, and because I was afraid to mess up and everything. And man, I just fucking hated myself for years about that. Everyone would even say shit like, "Where's all that shit you were doing on the rundown? Where was all that?" And do you even remember what you were playing on those first couple of takes? All that horse shit. So it drove me nuts because that's a fucking hard demon to slay, man. I mean. But I worked and worked and worked and worked and worked on that. For years it haunted me. And then all of a sudden, man, I don't know, years ago, one day, I just conquered that bitch. I mean, I got to the point where I could just not worry and play freely in the studio, man, and just try a bunch of crazy shit. And sometimes fall flat on my face. But I always said, if you're not getting called for fouls, you're not playing basketball, all right? You got to be aggressive. And if you just play safe, it's a bunch of bullshit, and nobody cares about it. I remember watching this old Steely Dan documentary called The Making of Asia, the Asia record. And one of my buddies, who I absolutely adore as a musician and a person, Dean Parks, was interviewed sitting by a swimming pool, and he says, they were asking him about how those records were made, and he said they would just do take after take after take, and they would rehearse past the point of perfection to where it felt natural. That is something that I really, really believe in. Getting shit to where it's perfect, that's just the first stop. Any respectable session man should be able to get something to sound perfect. And that's hard enough on its own, right? I mean, most young guys struggle just to get to that point, to make it perfect. But I'm interested personally at this age, and after I've been doing this shit for so long, of what happens after perfect. When I was younger, I would hunt down parts, like somebody would say, "Man, find some cool parts," and I'd just get out there and hunt and fish for cool parts, and I would find something, I knew it was good. You could tell by the language, the body language of the people around you when you find something good. And people look over you and they'll smile and they'll be like, "Yeah, dude." And then you start working on that and you start fine-tuning that part and working it, and getting it good. And then once I got that part that I thought was really cool, I would just keep playing it over and over, thinking that I found the magic part, right? And then after a while, after several takes, people get bored of that part, man. And I got bored of it. And the way that Pro Tools is now these days, million playlists, what's the point of keeping hammering on the same part over and over? Get a good couple playlists where you got that cool part that everybody likes, and then fucking move on. Go look for some other shit. I mean, there's a lot of gold out there in those fields, way past that original thing you found. You know what I mean? Session players have to remember what they were doing. You know, you can't just go in there and piss out a bunch of stuff and not remember what you played a take ago. I mean, you have to remember like what you're doing, so somebody wants to recall that. Yeah, go back to that thing you were doing a couple takes ago. Oh yeah, okay. But if you can't remember, then you're not really a session man. That's what I've always thought. But I feel like give them a couple good takes of the good magic part that you think is so great, and then keep looking, keep going. You might find something even way cooler than that, you know? So I hope that's not too inside. You know, like, I don't know what percentage of you guys that watch these videos are like, you know, amateurs or whatever. I don't know. But maybe some of you would get something out of that. You know, it's funny about sessions, you know, like, it's like, I'm constantly amazed at how fucking incredible the guys that I work with are, how talented they are. I mean, if you walked in and saw one of these sessions, if you'd never seen one before, you would think, look at these knuckleheads. Like, a bunch of guys don't even look like musicians, you know, all wearing the same shit like I do. Black t-shirt, jeans, chucks. And they don't look like rock stars or nothing, you know, and but all these guys, all these guys have one thing in common on all instruments. If you made it that far as a session player, you're probably a pretty smart dude. These guys all have incredibly quick wit and amazing senses of humor, and some of the gags and the jokes that happen on these sessions, the in-between takes, banter, is some of the funniest shit I've ever heard in my life. And you can't recreate it. You have to be there in the moment, you know. People will be joking around, saying all this fucking hilarious shit. And then all of a sudden, it's time to play the song, and then the count-off happens. And it's 1, 2, and then every single person in that room just turns into a cold-blooded killer. It's just amazing, man. These guys are so damn good, man. I mean, I look around sometimes, I just think I'm lucky to be there, man. You know, I work my ass off to be there. And that's my advice to you young guys, right? You gotta be like an Iron Man. You gotta get to the point where you can handle anything that somebody throws at you. Because if you start getting in your own head and you start thinking too much, you're done, capsized. I've been on some of the most amazing sessions. You know, I got moments of where I had so much fun and it was so good that I could never even describe it and put it in words. And I've also been on some of the most horrible atrocities of just absolute, total horror. I mean, I've ran the gamut from the worst to the best, and some of the most perverse, obscene situations that I've been thrown into, you know. I've always joked around that session players are like prostitutes, you know. You walk in the room and you look around and you go like, what the fuck am I gonna have to do today to get out of here with the money? I mean, that's the truth, right? But, you know, on a good day, it's not like that, right? So you gotta just, you know, because when you're a kid and you're learning guitar, you don't practice the kind of shit that you end up actually needing when you become a session player. You don't sit around and with a click track when you're a kid and chunk perfect eighth notes right dead on the click. You know, you don't practice that kind of stuff when you're a kid. You want to learn Eddie Van Halen solos and cool, fun stuff, you know, but when you end up being a session player, the stuff you need is a totally different skill set than the stuff you practice your whole life. I wish somebody would have told me that when I was a kid, because it would have saved me a lot of time. You know, it's amazing, you know, because like I've been doing this shit for so long that I feel like I've become an Iron Man. Like there's nothing that somebody could say to me on the other side of the glass that could throw me. But there is the perfect storm of things that could happen in the perfect order that will completely blow my fuse, and I will fucking have a meltdown. I mean, it's so much pressure being a session guy, even though it's all fun and games and everybody's joking around. The pressure is very subdued and very under the surface, but it's there, man. If you cannot get your part and you're holding everybody else up on this expensive session, you're in trouble. And everyone is like Yeah, oh yeah, so and so's in the barrel, man. Whoever it may be, bass player, they're hammering on him. He can't get his part. You don't want to be in the barrel. It happens to all of us. There's sometimes it's just a certain thing will happen, and you get thrown into a situation where you're kind of asked to. Here's the kind of shit that happens. Okay, you'll be in there, and you'll come up with an amazing part with an amazing tone, and everyone loves it, and you can tell everybody loves it because musicians become great at reading the room, and then you're just about to get it, and you've been playing this riff over and over, and you're like, fuck, I got this, man, this is killer. And then right when you're about to go for the take, the singer will say, hey, guys, let's go down a half step. And then you have to play it in a whole different key after you've been working on it. That's the kind of shit that happens on sessions. You can never get too comfortable because guaranteed somebody's going to throw a banana peel at you, and you're gonna have to get uncomfortable. That's just how it goes, man. I mean, it's truth. I mean, I've lived it a million times. All right, guys, I've talked too long. Enjoy your rainy day here, okay? Thanks, everybody.